if you're going to be a conscious business owner, you've got to know that there's always something bad headed for you in business. Successful people learn how to make their mind work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. All right, well, we've got a special podcast today for Thanksgiving, and we're going to talk a little bit about gratitude, but we're going to switch it up a bit, and Steph is going to interview me. We're going to do kind of interview style here and talk back and forth on the idea of gratitude and why it's important and how do we use it.
So the reason why I asked to do this is because I get lots of questions about gratitude. And on the surface, gratitude sounds very simple. Just be grateful, right? It's the antidote to everything. Just be grateful. Someone, says something like, what do I do to shift this? Just be grateful. But the feedback that I get and the questions that I get are really about, what if I'm not grateful? What if everything's falling down around me, or I've suffered some great loss and I can't actually feel gratitude in my body? I get questions like, should I just fake it until I feel it? I get questions like, is faking it enough? I get questions like, how do I get to a place where I can feel grateful again when this certain bad thing has happened or this downturn has happened? So I thought I would bring that to the podcast because I think that everyone goes through a rough patch at some point, and I think it's an important question to answer.
And it's a really good question too, because it spills over into a lot of other internal and emotional experiences, not just gratitude, but even though we're discussing the one about gratitude, my answer is it works for everything. And I think the idea is to start off with one of the major problems with the idea of positive thinking is that people start to believe that, I can't, if I'm feeling something negative, that it's not good, I need to switch my mind to a positive thought. And actually, that is not true. One of the biggest problems that we have is that many human beings do not know how to express the emotional state that they're actually experiencing. And if we're experiencing something that we would consider negative, and, even negative is a really interesting word around this because it almost has this connotation like I shouldn't be angry or I shouldn't be resentful or I shouldn't be hurt or whatever the negative emotion would be that you're experiencing. And that's not true either. We're human beings and we're complex and we experience a variety of different emotions and thoughts and experiences as we go through life and as we have different experiences and as we experience different things. So one of the first things to understand is that it's okay. Whatever emotion you're experiencing about something is okay. The question then shifts over to, well, when is it not? If it's okay, why would I ever change the way that I'm thinking? Well, if a person gets hyper-fixed on an emotional state, whether it's anger or resentment or sadness or, maybe even something like just kind of numb to the world. I hear people say, like, I don't know how I'm feeling. Yeah. It's kind of an ambivalence.
I hear dead inside a lot.
Yeah.
I feel dead inside.
Right. That's coming from not knowing or understanding how to express your emotional state as you're experiencing it, or it not being okay, or you thinking that you're wrong for doing so. So one of the things is that whatever emotional state you're experiencing, it's really good to identify what it is, to name the emotion that it actually is so that you understand what it is, and then understand what is it that's causing you to have that emotional experience, and then fully express it. Like, get it out of your body, move it through you so that you're no longer carrying it around. When you express it and experience it fully, it will pass, right? They will naturally pass. Now, what happens to a lot of people is that when it doesn't naturally pass for them, they get stuck in a state and they start to hyper-focus on whatever the problem was or the incident that actually causes the experience of that emotion. So that's where the positive thinking starts to come in. But it's not just about switching the emotion. It's about switching the perception of the event so that the emotion can switch naturally, not forcing yourself to feel grateful when actually you're not grateful at all. You're angry. So maybe you were wronged. Maybe it was completely unjust for you to be treated or whatever it is that happened to you, that happened to you. You might have been victimized, in some way. And there's nothing wrong with feeling bad about something that doesn't go well in your life. That's part of what gives human beings the wide range of experience that we have. Right. So I think that's where we start, Steph. We start with the idea that whatever it is that you're feeling, it's okay to experience that feeling. It's okay to have that feeling.
So when you said, whatever you are experiencing, it's okay, right? And this isn't to the point where you're actually stuck in that emotion. It's the initial, this is how I feel. Then you said to name it and fully express it. Can you give some examples of how to fully express that emotion?
Well, let's go with naming it first.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So we do this in various seminars where we'll hand out emotional description sheets, right?
Right.
And people look at it and they go, shit, I didn't realize there were that many emotions, because as we both know, most people go through life with your standard response to, like, when somebody says, how you doing? I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing good, right? And those are just standard responses. It really does not give another individual any insight as to what your emotional or what your internal experience is at the time. So whether you get a list of emotions at a seminar or you look it up online, like we have this great tool called Google.
Yeah.
You can print off a sheet and you can really start to look at the different emotions and ask yourself, what emotions am I actually experiencing right now? Because it might not just be one either. It could be a myriad of, I'm experiencing anger and sadness and loss and hate. I could be experiencing a myriad of emotions at any given time.
Right.
Then the idea of expressing that emotion would be, when you have identified what the emotion is, how do you want to express that emotion physically? Maybe it's crying, right? The idea is that we learn different forms of expression so that we can move it through us. Maybe it's crying. Now, here's where the problem comes in. If you were taught that it's wrong to cry, that it makes you weak as a person, or whatever you were taught that was wrong about it, you will avoid expressing yourself that way. Many people were raised in environments where it wasn't okay to be angry. It wasn't okay to express your anger.
Right.
The idea is that we're not destructive, right? But if you want to scream into a pillow, if you want to sit down with a pad of paper, if you're angry with someone and just write, get everything out, all your anger, all your feelings out onto a piece of paper and then go burn it somewhere. Just release it to the universe, right? You don't send the letter to them. You don't, like, your mom pissed you off and you write all this nasty stuff about her because you're feeling angry at the moment and then you send it to her. That's not the idea. The idea is that you just give it expression. So you can cry, you can write a letter, you could scream into a pillow, you could punch a pillow, you could stomp your feet. And, I would encourage anybody who's listening to this right now to think to themselves, when I say those things, crying, stomping your feet, raging into a pillow, whatever, what experience does that give you? Does that give you experience of I don't want to do that, that's stupid, that's childish, whatever? Actually, it isn't. It is allowing that emotion not to get bottled up inside of us and literally move through. Because we know that storing those negative emotions inside of our body is very much linked to disease.
Yes.
and illness, right? So not just psychological illness, but physical illness, emotional illness. So you find a way of expressing something that works for you. You may have to try various different things or a combination of different things that actually work from you. But when we say express it, that's what I'm talking about. Getting it out of your body, onto the paper, into the pillow. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's going out into a field somewhere and just yelling at the top of your lungs, or going for a hike. Or, one of the things that you've done is take a person's name and put it on a piece of masking tape, put it on the bottom of your foot, and then go for a hike, right? And just smack,
grind it.
Yeah, just
grind it into the gravel.
Yeah. Right. So you're expressing the emotion, and once you get that out of your body and you let it go, you're able to move to a place where you can look at whatever the thing is that triggered the emotion to begin with. And you can start to then see the polarity in that. You can then begin to see what's good about what happened. As long as you're in a negative state, you'll only see one side of it. You won't see both sides of it. So when you shift internally, it allows you to see the good that's there, or what is the benefit, at least, to what happened. And then you can reframe the experience as something positive.
So what you're saying, and this is what we've experienced, is when you're suppressing the expression of an emotion, that's when you go to crazy town. That's when you go to a place where you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Would you say that's the cause of a lot of depression, like that feeling of hopelessness that people get?
It's a tremendous cause of depression. I mean, one of the things that we know about depression is that a lot of it comes from unexpressed emotions. It comes from repressed anger, and when that starts to attack a person, then it starts to play off of the. You said hopelessness, right?
Yes.
Hope is a very interesting thing to the human being. It wherever you study it, you will not find anything really practical or logical about the idea of hope. But without it, humans go into total despair. Hope can be the very last thing that turns a person's life around, that turns an illness around, the death of a loved one, the loss of a marriage, the loss of a business, or the near loss of a business. That hope that there is another chance, another opportunity, another something out there is something that the human being naturally clings to. It is a life force that is perpetually trying to get us to move forward into the idea of more life. But when you start stacking up one negative emotion after another, one negative experience after another, on top of your own internal desire to move forward or change a problem or have a better life for yourself, or a better business, or a better marriage, or whatever it is, you start to go into that despair. It starts to attack hope. And then you start to see a person gets into depression. You then go to a place where maybe a person goes to a doctor for that, and they get examined, or they'll go to like the Amen clinic, and they'll have the scan done on their brain, and they'll verify it. They'll be like, "Yep, here's your brain lighting up. That's the depression part of your brain.
Right.
When you're going to depression, this is what it is." Even at that part, it's symptomatic, because the question is, well, what caused it, right? And a lot of things can cause it. There could be a genetic issue. There could be a food intolerance in a person's life. There could be a hormonal imbalance. There could be severe loss. There could be abuse in a person's life. But a lot of it does come from not expressing how we feel when we feel it. And then we get so good at doing that, at not expressing, that it becomes a natural way of us showing up. And we only notice it when other problems start to actually manifest in a person's life. Then we start to attack those problems, but we never get back to what the original cause was, which was the lack of expression of your emotional state.
Yeah. And I think, so there's two different ways that I want to go with this. I'm just not sure which one I want to go first. We've talked about how a big part of this problem is that we weren't taught properly how to express emotion as children.
Right.
Right? We were in families where it wasn't safe to express ourselves, or it wasn't acceptable to express ourselves, or there was shame involved in expressing yourself. So if you got angry, you were actually shamed. If you acted out, you were actually shamed. And that shut down that feeling that it's okay to name my feelings and express my feelings. And I think it's interesting because we're expressive beings, right?
For sure.
So would you say that this takes practice? Like this is something that you have to just allow yourself to go through and practice?
No question. 100%. It definitely takes practice. Anything that we realize about ourselves that is not serving us is probably something that we're habitually doing. And when you look at that habit, you have to ask yourself, well, how long has this actually been a habit? And the way that we learn to express or not express emotions, that habit started in our childhood. It was what was permitted. How were you taught or not taught that prior to the age of 7, right? So it literally takes practice and dedication for a person to change their emotional response and their thinking response to life. However, if a person's really dedicated to doing it and they understand the basic knowledge of how to retrain their brain to think successfully in their life, and I'm not just talking about like business success or financial, but success in every area of their life, then that becomes a new way of them showing up. But it does take some time, and it takes the desire to actually want to do that. But it's your greatest tool. The way that we think, how we think, the how of the thoughts that are running through our mind. It is the foundation of everything that we perceive in our life and all the decisions that we make. So if that was skewed as a child, and it is for most people, right? Yeah. May not be with everything, but you'll find that these ideas, these beliefs of how we think or how we view the world, they stack upon each other, because once you have one, then that's the way that you behave. That's your action in life. Then you get an experience which reinforces the belief or causes you to create similar beliefs that go along with that experience, and they keep stacking one on top of another. So the idea is that we begin to reverse that and remove it, and then build up construct a way that we actually think and emotionally respond in the world that serves us.
Okay, so we have named the emotion, we've expressed the emotion. Is it important that you find gratitude for what caused the emotion, or is it just important to find gratitude in whatever you can find gratitude in?
I think that in the beginning, well, so here's the thing. I don't know that finding gratitude in just anything when we're having that experience is a good thing or a bad thing. I think a person has to ask what serves them the best, and they have to play with this to actually find out. So let me tell you why. So let's say it's Thanksgiving. Let's say it's a family holiday, right, or whatever holiday that this might happen at. We know that holidays can be high stress times for families, right?
Yes.
So let's say something happens and you feel hurt or shamed or belittled or not seen or not valued or angry or whatever. Something goes wrong, right? Somebody says something stupid or behaves, in a poor way or whatever. And at that moment, you cannot find the gratitude in that problem. But you also know that you need to make it through the day.
Yes.
Right? You want to show up for your family. You want to be there. Finding other things to be grateful for may be great in that moment to allow you to move through that day.
You just focus on something else.
You focus on something else, right? But it's also something that you would not ignore, meaning that once the day is gone and you could get some alone time, then you go back and re-look at what you did and see what you can find about that experience. So here's what that does. It's going to tell you, what do you need to change personally so that you don't have that experience again? And that could be the way you're showing up. It could be what you're allowing to show up in your life. And then also how you respond to the things that are actually showing up. And then you do your personal work in that place so that it becomes one of those life lessons. I'm learning as I go. Here's another experience that I'm having. It's either a good or a bad experience. Here is how I'm emotionally responding to that experience. Here's how I would like to emotionally respond to that experience in the future. Here's what I would like to say in that experience in the future. And that is how we learn to process as we go through these different experiences in life.
So that would look like, let's say you're at Thanksgiving and Aunt Betty makes some snide remark that, cuts you down a couple of inches and you feel terrible about it. You go back at the end of the day, look at it, and see that you either need to not be around Aunt Betty anymore because there's no way that she can be happy for you because she's a miserable person, or it shows you that you need to set a really firm boundary and you pre-plan how you're going to show up the next time. So you're grateful for the experience because you learned A, B, or C about yourself and how you want to show up.
Right. And maybe it's a conversation with Aunt Betty saying, listen, because there are times where people will just say stupid things, right?
Yes.
We've all said things but like, shit, I can't believe that came out of my mouth.
Yes.
That was a dumb thing to say. And or maybe Aunt Betty doesn't even know she hurt your feelings, right? So honesty, communication, and then if that goes nowhere, then you go to the other ideas. Is this somebody I need to remove from my life? What do I need to set a firmer boundary? Does a person have the ability to even respect a boundary? Because setting boundaries is great, but when you have a person that refuses to respect the boundary, then the only other option is either you put up with it and get trampled on, or you remove the person from your life.
So, I think the moral of the story is that, faking it with fake gratitude really does nothing to
No, it does
help.
nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't feel good. You're faking it. You're not allowing yourself to be who you really are, and you're not learning. What you're teaching yourself is it's not okay to feel. That's it. If I'm faking something, I'm saying it's not okay for me to feel this way. And it is okay for you to feel that way. Now, I will say there are times where it may not be appropriate for you to act on that feeling in that moment, but that's maturity. Right? That's discernment.
Yes.
But there is a time when it is okay. And then you have to move yourself to that time and do what's necessary. I mean, look, in a situation like that, if it's really bad, you may need to excuse yourself from the table and go out for a walk, or go spend some alone time with yourself and get yourself back into a good place. You got to do what's best for you in that moment first. Know you're okay, and then you can focus on other people. But again, like I said, it's maturity, it's discernment, and that comes with experience.
So what if? So we come across, that's great with family gatherings, right? Emotional maturity, discernment, expressing, naming your feeling and expressing it. But how is it different when it's about your business? So what we see is people have some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of disruption in their business. Something happens that's not a great thing, right? And all of a sudden their business starts to go down. They stop converting sales conversations. They can't seem to find enough clients. Like everything seems to be going wrong in their business. Is it the same? You express how you're feeling, and then you name how you're feeling, you express it, and then look for where the lessons are? Is it the same in a business?
It's the same
aspect?
it's the same for anything, okay. Right? It doesn't matter what the experience is. With business, though, one of the things that's really interesting with business is that a lot of people go through business with blinders on. They approach their business from a very Pollyanna viewpoint, meaning that they don't really understand that something bad is going to happen. If you're going to be a conscious business owner, you've got to know that there's always something bad headed for you in business. All the time. It is
true. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Nobody wants to talk about
true.
it. But the people that understand that can prepare in a way that when it does happen, it becomes a blip on the screen and it's not a major catastrophe in the business, whether that's having enough operating capital to get through a bad sales cycle or a downturn in the economy or the loss of an employee or a new regulation from the government or the internet or whatever it might be. There's always something coming. A competitor, right? I've watched a lot of people be literally put out of business because they had no idea that a competitor was strategizing to actually take them out. And they, right now, I would say over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of teaching. There's a lot of coaches out there, a lot of teachers that are teaching from the spiritual perspective that there is no competition. And that's complete bullshit. There's always competition. The teaching that the teachings that they take this from were never intended to get a person to believe that there's no competition and we can live in a way where we don't have to worry about that or be concerned with it. The idea is that we're coming from the place in our business where we're not actually intentionally competing with someone else, but we're actually creating in our business. But you have to be aware that the capitalism is competitive, period. It is designed in a way to be competitive. That's why we don't allow monopolies in this country, right? So if you're not aware of that, you're putting your head in the sand, right, with the idea that somebody won't take you out. And, it happens all the time. A person will wake up and find out their business is gone because a competitor came in and found a way to do something better or cheaper or more effective, and it's gone. There are so many things that can happen in business where you could wake up and it be a great day and you show up at the office and you find out it is not a great day today, right? It is really not a great day today. Yeah. And the reason that I went on that little diatribe there is because the idea behind it is that we're not awake to the idea that there's a downside to everything in life, and it's always on its way to you, right? So it's basically the law of rhythm, good times, bad times, right? Mm-hmm. Highs and lows. If we understand the law, though, we can help control the emotional situation that we go through it because we understand that this is for a time. This is a cycle that's happening. And really good business owners try to foresee the cycle. Right. That's coming. They try to stay present to everything that's going on. If that's not something if that's not a way where you want to live that way, then you probably shouldn't be a business owner. But again, you're still just putting your head in the sand because when you work for somebody else, they have to look for the cycle. So you're not even in control of looking for the cycle anymore. But yeah, it definitely happens in business. And it's the same thing. Find out what it is, express it. Then, because here's the idea. Not only is it about expressing it, but it's also about how do we turn this situation, whether it's business or family or whatever it might be, into something that's productive and not destructive. Right? If I stay in my anger or my negative emotion, if I keep labeling this person or this situation as bad or wrong or victim or whatever I'm labeling it, I can't move past it, learn from it, and then do something different the next time. It's very important that I see all the sides of whatever this thing is so that I can make a different decision now, and in the future I can make a different decision. The idea is that we learn from these experiences.
Yeah, I wrote down, because I hear this all the time, God is good all the time.
All the time.
No matter what the horrific experiences you're having, no matter what's happened to you, there's always a lesson to be learned. There's always something positive to come out of the negative. And it's about getting to a place where you can see that. That's the important piece. Right.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of study and a lot of practice and a lot of internal investigation to get to the point where that's not just a nice little saying, but you understand why it is what it is, right? Whether you call it God or the universe or life or whatever. I believe that it's true. I live that way, and I also understand that it took a long time to get there in my understanding before that became something real, because there's a lot of bad things that happen so we say, right? There's a lot of bad things that
Yes.
happen. But for the person that's living in that reality, it is bad because they don't have any other mental options to work their way around to the other side of it. When you learn how to do that, and it is a skill set, it changes everything in your life. And then you can be pre-grateful for the bad that's coming. Like, I know something is going to happen that's going to affect the business. I know something that is going to happen to affect a relationship. I know something is coming. It's always come. There's always something coming, right? And I can be grateful for it before it even gets here. So I can pre-decide how I'm going to respond to something before it actually gets here. That has me go into a problem, even if I'm triggered or having a negative emotion around it. I can also say to myself, I'm grateful for this. I just don't know what it is yet, but I'm grateful for it because it's going to show me something that I didn't know or understand that I need to learn.
Yeah, for me, there are things that go wrong all the time. There are things that we've put hours and hours and hours into that flop. There are things that we put 10 minutes into that are amazing successes. And for me, it's when I can't feel grateful for what's happening, I feel grateful for my ability to respond to what's happening because I have a choice. I can think through the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Life is like, I love the analogy of the jigsaw puzzle because it's I think everybody can relate to it. When you throw a jigsaw puzzle out on the table, you've got a bunch of pieces, and then you have the ideal, which is whatever the picture is on the front of the box. You may, in the beginning, when you first start, you have to go through maybe 100 pieces or 50 pieces before you find two that fit together, right? And as you keep going through it, you go through more that don't fit than actually do. But eventually you find the pieces that fit. And you're like, yay, that worked. I have a corner, right?
So satisfying.
Yeah. Oh, I've got this little panel, this little blotch of red. You got this little blotch of red over here, a little green leaf over here. You got a corner over here. And you're looking at this is the way that it's supposed to be. Our life is the same way. If we build a picture of the life that we want to create in our mind, then it's about testing all these different things. Let me try this. Let me try this in my business. Let me try this in my relationship. Let me try this in whatever it is in your life. And eventually you get these little pieces that fit together and you're like, yes, these fit. But you got to go through a lot that don't.
Right.
And not get stuck emotionally in the ones that don't, whether it's the rejection or the failure or the investment or whatever. That's how you play the game of life. You're understanding that it's that people get emotionally attached to those things and they allow the hurt because it's not actually the process that they're enjoying. They just want the picture without going through the process. Right. But if you can learn to enjoy that process, it's a hell of a lot of fun because you're not afraid of the loss. You're not afraid of it.
Right.
So you're willing to try anything. You're willing to do anything. You're willing to take big risks because it's like, okay, so if it fails, yeah, maybe that would suck for a little bit, but I'll just, level the ground and we'll rebuild. We'll start something completely new.
Yeah. It's freedom.
It's total freedom.
Yeah, it's total freedom.
Total freedom.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me ask you.
You're welcome. And I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. And if you like what you heard and you want to know more, go to davidnagel.com/free stuff.